Elias Rowan sat in his home office, the weight of 16 years pressing against his chest like stones. Outside, the twins, Theo and Mira, laughed in the garden, their voices carrying through the open window. They were 15 now, bright and beautiful, the center of his universe. He had never questioned anything, not when Marina Hale agreed to marry him after a whirlwind romance, not when she became pregnant so quickly, not when the children were born with features that didn't quite match his own. Love, he believed, transcended such trivial concerns. Marina entered the room, her auburn hair catching the afternoon light. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, her smile practiced and perfect. "I'll be down soon," Elias replied, barely looking up from his laptop. She hesitated at the door. "You've been distant lately. Is everything all right?" "Just work stress," he lied, though his hands trembled slightly as he typed. The truth was far darker. 3 days ago, Marina had left her email open on the family computer. Elias, searching for a document, had stumbled upon messages that shattered his world. Hundreds of emails between Marina and Victor Kane, a wealthy businessman Elias had met twice at charity events. The affair had lasted 16 years, the entire length of their marriage. But it wasn't just infidelity that made Elias's blood run cold. It was the most recent exchange, dated just last week. "Victor, we can't keep living this lie. The children deserve their real father." "Patience, my love. I've been consulting with someone. An accident, something untraceable. Then we'll finally be together, publicly. The life insurance will secure their future." "I can't believe we're actually doing this, but you're right, it's the only way." Elias had read those words 100 times, each reading confirming the nightmare was real. His wife, the woman he'd loved unconditionally, and her lover were planning his murder. He couldn't go to the police, not yet. Victor Kane had connections, money, power. Any premature move would alert them, and Elias knew he'd be dead before any investigation could protect him. So he did what any man fighting for survival would do. He began to plan his own disappearance. That evening at dinner, Elias smiled at his family, playing the role of oblivious husband one more time, but inside, he was already saying goodbye. For 2 weeks, Elias moved through his life like a ghost, secretly arranging his exit while maintaining the facade of normalcy. He consulted a discreet lawyer, established a trust fund for Theo and Mira that neither Marina nor Victor could touch, and gathered every piece of evidence documenting the affair and the murder plot. The hardest part was knowing he'd have to leave the twins behind, temporarily. But dead, he'd be no father at all. Alive and hidden, he could one day return to protect them. On a Friday evening, Marina announced she was taking the children to her sister's house for the weekend. "You could use some time alone to relax," she said, kissing his cheek, with lips that felt like ice. Elias knew what this meant. This was their window. As soon as Marina's car disappeared down the driveway, Elias activated his plan. He packed a single bag, left carefully worded documents with his lawyer to be released if anything happened to him, and drove toward the Canadian border using a route he'd memorized. He was 3 hours into the drive when he saw her, a woman standing beside a broken-down car on a desolate stretch of highway, her emergency lights blinking in the growing darkness. Elias almost kept driving. Every instinct screamed that he couldn't afford delays. But something about her desperate wave made him slow down. As he approached, his breath caught. She was unlike anyone he'd ever seen, standing about 5.5 feet tall with flowing blonde wavy hair that cascaded past her shoulders. But it was her other features that made him stare. Delicate fox-like ears protruded from her hair, twitching slightly in the cold wind, and behind her swayed a magnificent bushy tail striped with blonde and cream colors. Her face was human, beautifully so, with bright amber eyes that held both intelligence and wariness. "Thank you for stopping," she said, her voice melodic. "I'm Lena Whitmore. My car just died." She gestured helplessly at the smoking hood. Elias found himself drawn to her genuine distress. "I'm David," he lied, using the false identity he'd prepared. "Let me take a look." As he examined her engine, truly broken beyond roadside repair, Lena hugged herself against the cold, her tail wrapping partially around her legs for warmth. "Where were you headed?" Elias asked. "North, away from complications." Her ears flattened slightly. "You?" "Same," he admitted. Their eyes met, and somehow they both understood they were running from something.
"I can give you a ride to the next town," Elias offered, unable to leave her stranded in the freezing night. Lena's ears perked up with relief. "I'd be grateful. I can pay for gas." "Don't worry about it," Elias interrupted, already loading her small suitcase into his trunk. As they drove through the darkness, an unexpected ease settled between them. Lena sat with her tail curled in her lap, occasionally stroking its soft fur, a self-soothing gesture Elias found oddly endearing. "So what are you running from?" she asked, after an hour of comfortable silence. Elias's hands tightened on the wheel. "That's complicated. My ex-boyfriend tried to sell me," Lena said quietly, her ears drooping, "to a collector. Apparently, someone like me, someone different, is worth a lot of money to the wrong people." Elias glanced at her, seeing the pain behind her brave facade. "I'm sorry, that's horrific. What about you, David?" She studied him with those penetrating amber eyes. "You have the look of someone who's lost everything." Maybe it was the darkness, or the fact that he'd been carrying this burden alone for weeks, but Elias found himself telling her everything. The affair, the murder plot, the children he'd had to leave behind to stay alive. When he finished, Lena reached across the console and placed her hand over his. Her touch was warm, grounding. "You're incredibly brave," she whispered. "I'm a coward," Elias corrected. "I ran." "No," her tail swished with emphasis. "You survived. There's a difference." They stopped at a motel just before midnight. Elias paid for 2 rooms, but as they stood in the parking lot, neither wanted to separate. "Would you want to get some food?" Lena asked. "I know a 24-hour diner isn't romantic, but—" "I'd like that," Elias said, surprised by how much he meant it. Over coffee and pie, they talked for hours. Lena shared stories of growing up different, of finding strength in what made her unique. Elias spoke about the man he used to be, before betrayal stripped away his naivety. When Lena laughed, a genuine musical sound, something frozen inside Elias's chest began to thaw. "Come with me," he said suddenly. "I mean, if you want. We're both heading north anyway." Lena's ears stood tall, her eyes brightening. "I'd like that very much." 3 months passed as Elias and Lena built a new life in a small Canadian town where nobody asked questions. They rented a cabin by a lake and slowly, carefully, began to heal. Elias found work as a carpenter, using skills he'd forgotten he possessed. Lena got a job at the local library, where her gentle nature and unique appearance, initially startling to some, soon made her beloved by the community. Their relationship evolved naturally. Shared meals became shared confidences. Separate bedrooms became a formality neither acknowledged. One evening, as snow fell outside, Lena curled up beside Elias on the couch, her tail draped over his lap. "Thank you," she murmured, "for not seeing me as something to fear or exploit." Elias stroked her soft hair, his fingers gently touching one of her fox ears. She leaned into the touch, a soft purr-like sound emanating from her throat. "Thank you for reminding me what genuine connection feels like," he replied. She looked up at him, amber eyes reflecting firelight. "David, or should I say Elias, I know that's your real name. I found the documents you keep hidden." His body tensed. "Lena." "I don't care," she interrupted. "I don't care what your name is or what you're running from. I care about who you are right now, in this moment." The kiss that followed was inevitable, tender, and ignited something neither had expected to feel again. Elias pulled her closer, his hands exploring the unique contours of her body, the soft fur of her tail, the delicate sensitivity of her ears, the very human warmth of her skin. They made love slowly, carefully, as if afraid the moment might shatter. Weena's tail wrapped around Elias's leg, drawing him deeper. Her soft gasps and whispered encouragements erased years of betrayal, replacing lies with truth, deception with authenticity. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head resting on his chest, her ears twitching contentedly as he traced patterns along her spine. "I love you," Elias whispered into her hair. "I love you too," Lena replied, her tail curling possessively around his leg. For the first time in 16 years, Elias felt something he'd forgotten existed: hope. But that night, his phone buzzed with a message from his lawyer. "They know you're alive. Marina and Victor have been arrested. Evidence was enough. The twins want to see you."
The trial became national news. Marina Hale and Victor Kane, arrested for conspiracy to commit murder, watched their carefully constructed lies crumble under the weight of evidence Elias had gathered. The emails, the financial records showing Victor had fathered the twins, the testimony from the consultant Victor had hired, it all painted a damning picture. The prosecution argued for maximum sentences, and the jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Elias sat in the courtroom gallery, Lena beside him, her hand clasped tightly in his. When the verdict was read, he felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Marina's eyes found his across the room. For a moment, he saw something that might have been regret, but it was too late for apologies. Outside the courthouse, Theo and Mira waited. They were 16 now, nearly adults, and the truth about their parentage had devastated them. "Dad," Theo said, the word trembling with emotion. Elias embraced both twins, tears streaming down his face. "I'm so sorry I left. I'm so sorry." "You had to," Mira interrupted. "We know that now. We read everything." "This is Lena," Elias said, introducing the woman who'd saved him in more ways than one. The twins stared at Lena's unique features with typical teenage directness, but there was no fear or judgment in their eyes. "You made our dad happy again," Mira said simply. "Thank you." Lena's ears twitched with emotion, her tail swishing gently. "He did the same for me." 6 months later, Elias and Lena stood before a small gathering of friends and family, including Theo and Mira, and exchanged vows. It wasn't the wedding Elias had imagined as a young man, but it was infinitely more meaningful. That night, in their home by the lake, Elias held Lena close, marveling at how survival had led to something beautiful. 16 years of lies, he whispered, led me to one truth: you. Lena kissed him deeply, her tail wrapping around them both like a promise. Then maybe those years weren't wasted. Maybe they were just the long road that brought us together. As they made love under the stars, visible through their bedroom window, Elias finally understood. Betrayal had tried to destroy him, but survival had given him something far greater than revenge. It gave him love, real, honest, unbreakable love. And that was the ultimate victory. The end.